Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the House Yogas podcast, The Pathway to Progress, where we dive into the topic of yoga, meditation, personal growth, and much, much more. And this is for anyone who wants to enhance their yoga practices and get better at life. This is Jason Pooley, and today I'm joined by the one and only Kristian Wentzel, aka our yogi legend at the House of Yoga. Kristian has been a member for a while. I'll let him tell you this later on. And by the way, for you guys who are listening, Kristian is 78 years young. He has an incredible energy and outlook on life. You are an inspiration, Kristian, to us all, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's very kind of you. So let's jump in.
Thank you.
No problem. So can we start with, Kristian, why do you practice yoga? And can you also share with us the impact yoga has had on your life?
Yeah, try to. I had a funny life. I mean, initially I came from Germany and was in advertising, marketing, and publishing. And I had, for all those who remember the wild 70s, 80s, 90s, a wild marketing life. My first clients were all in the spirits business. So I had a lot of intake of intoxicating liquids whenever I visited my clients, which after a while is, as you might imagine, not too good for your body. So it went on, but I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed it to the full until my son started rowing, and the father shoveled him as a junior to the club and eventually went to university. And I was asked to join an aid as a cox. And I realized with my still alcoholic lifestyle, that there were three guys in the crew who seemed to be a little bit healthier than everybody else. One was the rower in aid, who was also an osteopath and a yogi. The other one was a psychiatrist and also a yogi. And the third one was a financial guy, also a yogi. They were all always a little bit healthier than the rest of them. And I thought, why shouldn't I be like them? So my stroke, the osteopath said, Kristian, why don't you start with yoga, restorative and what is it? So light yoga. And
okay. Yeah.
I passed the House of Yoga, walked in, gave these briefings to the guy at the reception, and he said, you should start with yin yoga. This is history.
The rest is history. Yeah. And so and when was that, Kristian?
That was 5.5 years ago, when good old Ed was sitting there like a firm piece of equipment behind.
Okay. The lovely Ed. Yes. Got it now. Okay. So, well, you've just answered the question around how long you've been practicing at the studio at the House of Yoga. So sort of 5.5 years. Is that right now?
That's correct. Yeah.
Amazing. And so, in those 5.5 years, we can see that you're fully committed to these practices, not just yoga, but obviously meditation and nidra that we can talk to later on in this discussion. But it's such an inspiration coming to the studio. I mean, how many classes a week are you currently doing, Kristian?
Between 4 and 5, if I'm not in the boat. On the weekend, it's 5, otherwise it's 4. But I do flow every morning. I do meditation in the morning, and then I do my flow anyway.
It's unbelievable. It's really great to hear and see. So the impact for you then, Kristian, you sort of mentioned that, it came about where you started rowing, and those three guys had yoga in their life, and
yeah,
it sounded like you made that decision in your mind. I'd like a piece of that, right? I want to try and explore that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the impact been on your life? Your health, mind, body, spirit. Can you just give us a little insight into the impact for you?
Yeah, there was a clear impact, because coinciding with taking up yoga a year before, I gave up basically from one day to another drinking. So I stopped drinking altogether.
Mm.
And then with the yogic lifestyle, a couple of ailments that I had, which were treated by the NHS,
Mm.
um, just disappeared because I didn't need any treatment anymore. And they just
Wow.
faded away. One of which was my knees, where I was told I should have microsurgery. They have disappeared. Shoulder pains that I had in the middle of the night. Probably some of you listening to it know this thing, kind of almost frozen shoulder. It all disappeared. I mean, and on top of that, I'm sleeping. And I'm sleeping as I will. I mean, I don't need to wait for it. I don't need to take pills or
Mm.
do anything else. And I think quite a lot of our friends around us still struggle, and I have no struggle anymore.
Wow, that's just incredible, right? We know that yoga works on so many levels. And so what I'm hearing is, Kristian, that physically, injuries that have been there for some time, then obviously not, not really a healing practice, obviously. And sleep. I mean, obviously we know that, sleep has such a big part to play in our overall wellness, mind and body state. And so it's amazing to hear that, because we know the impact of yoga, and it really is a solution for so many ailments and challenges that we experience in our life. And it's great to hear that. And can you share a little bit more around the different practice? So I know you love different styles, right? And different teachers. um you love exploring, which is brilliant. What would you say is your sort of favorite style um right now?
Well, I don't have a particular favorite style, but you know that I had a nasty accident um, on just before Christmas in 2020.
That's right.
Um, and I basically ruptured in my calf 4 muscle strings and ruptured my
Ooh.
Achilles twice. So, with a certain point of fitness, I got into that and managed according to the consultants at Chelsea and Westminster. And our neighbor, who happens to be here in Putney, is the head of osteopathy in Charing Cross, told me the same thing. If I wouldn't have done the yoga, I wouldn't be where I am now, because I would have basically be immobilized at that stage in
Wow.
my life.
Unbelievable.
And so with the help of Serge, who heard about what I had, he gave me some hints about chair yoga, and I devised out of what I did in the morning what I call, in inverted commas, invalid yoga. I started basically a fortnight after I had the accident, where I was completely immobilized on the floor with gritting my teeth together, and basically got where I am now. I mean, you've seen me in the studio, and I'm not with Juliet yet, but I start my first class with Serge with Power Yoga tonight again. So that is about 16 months after it
Just
happened.
brilliant. Yeah, what an inspiration. And again, such a healing practice. And what I love about that is that even when you were, immobilized and you had the injury, but you were still willing to try chair yoga. And actually, so many people who get injured stop practicing. Of course, you need to be adaptable, right? As you have
Yeah,
been. um, but I always sort of say, you can still practice. You can completely modify, but still be in the experience of yoga. And that is exactly, sounds like that's exactly, the approach that you had.
yeah.
So brilliant, Kristian. When did you first land on a yoga mat? Like, what was that? So you talked about the story of being on the rowing boat with the three guys. Was that the first time coming in 5.5 years ago, or was there a time before that?
It is a really funny thing, because I mean, um, eh, my transformation was a bit like Saulus to Paulus. When my wife initially started with yoga, when I think she was pregnant the first time, I laughed about it, and my cousins in Germany and Berlin started it. I was pretty dismissive, and when I first started at the House of Yoga, I was almost packing up immediately, because my wife and my daughter, when I told them I would start yoga, they raised their eyebrows and didn't believe me.
Right.
So there I was in a very full Buddha studio. I mean, really full studio with Guru Casey in the beginning. And the beginning was really a bit disenchanting almost. I was surrounded by all these beautiful young people, of which one, the most beautiful one, started snoring so loud at all.
That's brilliant.
I asked Ed afterwards if it would always be like that, because I think it's a bloody waste of time and money for me. He says, try it again. And thank goodness, and that was the destiny, and probably the reason why some greater force made me come back. I ended up on the next Tuesday with Malin, and Malin really got me off the ground big time. And we had the lovely so-called Tuesday class, the Tuesday.
I remember that. Yeah.
It was legendary Tuesday yin class. And when Malin left, Emma took over, and it was equally delightful. And then Sasha took over along the same lines. And it was always the same people, and it was like a big family. It was brilliant. And the spirit in the class was absolutely fantastic, I would say. And so therefore everybody came back and back and back, and we were very disappointed when COVID then came and we couldn't come anymore.
That's right. Yeah. Well, let's hope that things are starting. Like, we were in the studio yesterday, right? We're actually practicing Nidra together, and then you did the evening class, and more people on their mats. It's great to see more people coming back, and bringing that energy back. It's needed for sure. So now, meditation, I know you're a big fan of meditation, and also yoga nidra. We've actually done some similar, we've done the same training in meditation, right? And do you want to just give us a little bit of insight into your journey of meditation? And again, what does it mean to you? Why do you love it so much? How does it support you and navigate through daily life?
It's another thing of everybody to think about. When you get older, not only do the muscles around your thighs get thinner all of a sudden, to my great annoyance, though you sit on the bike and on the rowing machine, but it just seems to disappear. But the more threatening part is what happens in your head. And I was self-employed quite long. I mean, I gave up my office, I packed up my office when I was 73 and did online advertising, which is usually reserved to the generation upper age group 28. And when you then feel all of a sudden that your head doesn't function exactly like you want it to be, then you have to start thinking very hard. And I thought very hard. And I was lucky again. I have to come back to a workshop with Sasha right at the beginning, with Yoga Nidra, which is meditative yoga. And that has a great effect on the head and on your brain. And when you go through your chakras, and particularly all the ones up Vishuddhi, which is the throat chakra,
right.
And in your head, you can then start to think perhaps in the following way, as I did, and say, look, you have to do something with this gray mass up in the top of your head. And that's what I did. And funnily enough, the process that started, I would say at 73, 74, could, if I'm not mistaken, completely be reversed.
That's
And
it. Yeah.
please remember that when you get older, because you always want to answer to your family and friends and your children in the way they know you. And it worked for me. So I eventually followed your advice and good old Gary's advice and went to the Bija meditation.
Down in central, right? In central London, yes.
Oxon Square. And I would say it's a bit like transcendental meditation. You have to be aware what they want from you, in particular financially, and whether that's actually worth it or whether you can do it yourself. And I did go through it, and for a starter, it helped. But as I told you yesterday, in the end, I ended up with a different mantra altogether, which is really, Will Williams asked me for nearly £300 for my second mantra, which he declared was most powerful. I'm not quite sure about that, because mine actually works very well. And I'm happy to give people without any payment advice on that subject at any time if we meet in the in the lobby of House of Yoga.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah,
you can do it yourself and feel it yourself.
That's really powerful, right? And so, you know, you and me are like, we both love mantra meditation. It's one of my favorite experiences, or to get me really into meditation. It's definitely mantra. And yeah, so it's amazing again to hear that you've explored your own way in and being curious around, well, actually I can design and create my own mantra, and keep that one in your back pocket, Kristian.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great to hear. And you know, last night we actually met up, and thank you, my friend, took us through a yoga nidra. Although it finished, I think it was 10 minutes out to the end, right? But it certainly took me somewhere else, and I felt great for the rest of the day, and I had a brilliant night's sleep last night. So yeah, it works.
Well, as Ed said in the beginning, when I didn't know what Sasha did with us, he said yoga nidra, so I had to look it up. I had to Google it down, and I started it from there, and I practiced it whilst my wife was working at school every morning, when I didn't go to an early class in the House of Yoga. And yoga nidra can be a really powerful thing, especially with people with sleeping problems or other nervous problems. It can you get back on even keel, and you will be ultimately grateful if you could be put on that path. Actually,
it's such a powerful way to relax mind and body, right, and nervous system. And
indeed.
yeah, every time, I remember yesterday we laid down on the mat, and yoga nidra began, and I remember saying to myself, right, I'm gonna see if I can, well, I sort of explored, can I stay awake through this? But I just knew every single time, I'm like, my body completely surrenders, and yeah, takes, just as you said yesterday, just takes you somewhere else, and it's a great feeling. So thank you for that yesterday. I'm sure we're gonna have to do more in the future for sure. So what does yoga, like, if someone was asking you the question, Kristian, what does yoga mean to you? Like, what would be your answer?
Well, yoga is the bit that keeps me where I am at the moment.
Do you mean in the being present, being as in a present moment experience?
Well, and as I said, I mean, it's the stupid aging process through which you go, and it keeps you at least on a level where other people are not, even 10 years younger. And I would say that's where I want to be. And if I look around me, I always want to be a little bit ahead of that, as long as I can be. And hence and I told that to my wife and my children. I said, whatever happens, I said, you have to forgive me, but I have to go and do my yoga, because if I don't, it has a detrimental effect. And we all
Right.
found that
That
out when we were in lockdown. I mean, if I wouldn't have carried on in lockdown with online yoga, I mean, I don't know where I would have been.
wow. Yeah. That's what we've been talking about for so long, right? I mean, we talk about that in our teacher trainings. It's something really landed for me when I realized that, well, I'm not doing yoga or meditation to get better at yoga and meditation. Of course, we evolve and the practice gets better, but we do it to get better at life. And I think that's what you're saying here right now, that when you go to the studio and you say you come back home or wherever you go, it's just something that reconnects you and you feel better, right? And
Indeed.
and everyone wins. So you win, the people around you win. So it's, you know, it's a shared practice. I think that's a really good insight, is that, you know, we show up, we roll up, we roll down our mat on the floor, we move and breathe, and we end up feeling better within ourselves. And, you know, that's a powerful thing.
It's another interesting thing for perhaps couples, young couples, married couples, unmarried
Mm,
couples, or whatever. It is also notable that any quarrels we had here, at least at home in the Wentzel household, um, have almost disappeared. And
amazing.
if that is something to slot into this discussion, that is, I think, worthwhile, because what a waste it has been. And you don't need to come back and apologize to each other, because basically you have a different way of looking at life altogether.
Wow. Yeah, different perspective, right? A different lens. Very, very good, Kristian. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I really appreciate it. So we're sort of coming towards the end of the discussion now. You guys that are listening, thank you for joining Kristian and myself. It means a lot. And Kristian, is there anything else you just want to share with our listeners in regards to, you know, such an inspiration, as I said at the beginning, to see you get on your bike and get to the studio multiple times a week. Uh, it's a great thing. And yeah, long may it continue.
Long may it continue. Yeah, I mean, on a parting slot, I would say, I came one fine day into the studio with a little article about a lady. She was 106, and there was a picture of her, and you wouldn't have thought she was 106. She's standing in front of her yellow car. And the article was taken from BBC Two, who uh, investigated a couple of over 80s. And this lady had just bought at 106 a new car. And she was out of the whole lot, by the way. All the women were considerably better than the men, funnily enough. There we are. And she was full of praise of her car, and the interviewers were absolutely puzzled. And in the end, the obvious question occurred. Now, look, can you tell us what made you so outstanding, look so young, and still at 106 buying a new car and all these things? Oh, she said, yeah, I started taking up yoga when I was
There
63.
you go.
I've been
Wow.
doing it every day. And I said, Melon, what shall we do with that? Oh, she grabbed it from my hand and put it on the wall.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
It's a practice. It's an ongoing practice. And yeah, as I said, long may it continue. And brilliant. A great conversation, discussion, Kristian. Let's do it again someday. And I look forward to seeing you at the studio very soon.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. And also to the listeners, thank you for joining us today. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, Kristian. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
No problem. All right, everyone, have a great day. Speak to you soon.
You.